If you weren't paying attention to your dad, what are the chances that you get beat?
If I wasn't paying attention to my father,
Yeah.
I was always paying attention to my father. That's the first thing I did. I stepped in the door.
Good. So my point is that you were always paying attention. And why is that? Because even before you remember, there were times that you weren't paying attention. And when you weren't paying attention, you didn't see the look because you were playing with your Legos and then you got beat. So
Yeah.
you learned from a very, very early age, you always have to pay attention. Because that is a survival mechanism. Think about it like evolutionarily. Like in one scenario, you get beat, and in one scenario, you don't get beat. So your 6-year-old brain learns, I have to pay attention. And now what's happening is you haven't learned to stop paying attention, or you haven't realized that you're still paying attention. Well, let's see if we can help you out with that. What are you nervous about? Let's start there. Talking about what? What are we talking about?
PTSD and trauma. This is something that like I kept bottled up for a long time. So just letting it out, it's nerve-wracking, but it's something I feel like I need to do.
Why have you kept it bottled up?
I'm scared. Scared of like, cause if you keep it bottled up, it's like, it's your burden to bear, I guess. I've been vocal about this on my stream a couple times and stuff, and every time I let it out, I just get so emotional, and I get so like, and I don't really like as a streamer, like you want to entertain your chat, you don't want to like burden them with your troubles, you know. But I can't do my job and entertain if I'm feeling the way I feel. Does that make sense?
Sure. I'm not so sure that I agree with this idea of entertainment. So I think part of the reason that Twitch is such a powerful platform is because it's not just fun and games. Right? It's fun and games most of the time, but there's enough of reality in there, which is why I think it's like I think there are other platforms out there that are a little bit more soulless. Like it's not about like there's no human connection. There's no interaction. And part of what I think makes Twitch actually amazing is that it's the stuff that I'm guessing that you perceive as unentertaining, like burdening Twitch chat, is actually part of what makes them form a connection with you. And it's not entertainment, but it's like, you know, like there are movies that are really good that are not fun, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
what
true.
makes them good? It's because like there's something about life and reality, and like it's a blend of like fun stuff that we do and also shit that's real. So I mean, but I'm with you. Like I know that, you know, I'm sure you feel burdened to like entertain people because that's why they watch, right? Wow, that is a gigantic bottle of water.
Yeah, it's I'm too lazy to have a cup to go downstairs to refill it, so I just have this, and it keeps it cold. It's like a thermal water thing, so there's like ice cubes in there.
How much
Oh.
water does that store?
Uh, I have it's a lot.
Yeah.
I try to drink this whole thing once a day to keep hydrated.
Nice. Well,
Let me see
cheers.
yours. But like, don't you get tired of like having that glass and just refilling it with water all the time?
Yeah, I do.
And it gets like warm. It gets like warm, like room temperature, you
Yeah,
know?
man, this is some room temperature shit I have here. But yeah, so I mean, I get that you're nervous. So like, is there? You say that you do let this out on stream from time to time?
Yeah, because I feel like if I can let people in on the things I've gone in my life, it can help people go through, or it can help people go through what's going on in their lives. Because everyone has some sort of trauma. Everyone has some sort of like, everyone has demons in the like skeletons in the closet. So if I can share my story and share my skeletons in the closet, maybe it can help somebody else.
Absolutely, man. That's
And
what
it could
we're here
also,
for.
and also, it also helps me too get through it, because I've never been vocal about what happened in my childhood to anybody other than my girlfriend and my stream.
Okay, I've never told anyone except for my girlfriend and thousands of people on the internet. I love it, right?
I mean, I
But
haven't told like my closest friends. I haven't told like
yeah,
family.
I mean, so Twitch chat was just trolling me about like I was like, yeah, Twitch chat, I'm gonna trust you guys, and they're like, lol, what? Like you're trusting us? And I'm like, yeah, I am trusting you because you were trustworthy. It's kind of a mind-boggling. They don't understand that,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, my Twitch chat knows more about me than my family, than my
yeah.
friends, than my family, than anyone.
Strong work, Twitch chat. Talk about being good listeners. So
Yeah.
can I? And if I ask a question that is too fast, or you don't want to answer, but I find myself being curious when you say like stuff that happened to you that your friends don't know. I find myself being curious, like what happened to you, man?
So me and my family, we grew up in poverty. We were really, really poor. And I don't really know if it was the poverty that drove my dad to the way he became, or if it was just he was going to become that way either way. I think being poor definitely made it worse, but he was an alcoholic, uh, a raging alcoholic. He was abusive emotionally and physically towards me and my mother. Uh, yeah, that's he. He beat me and my mom, and emotionally, he'd say a lot of things. It varied from day to day. Uh, and yeah, how
Wow.
do I? I mean, do you want a story? Would you
If you
like a
feel like
story?
telling one, I was just kind of listening there for a second. To be completely honest, and what am I calling? Am I calling you Coconut B?
You can just call me Coco.
Coco. So Coco, I mean, just what you shared actually sort of like knocked me over emotionally. To be honest, I just didn't have words in my head for a little bit.
Yeah, people tend to say that.
So I was just kind of processing. It's kind of interesting because you didn't really use a whole lot of like language, but just something about the way that you said it, I think carried a certain weight to it.
Mm,
Um, because you kind of said he was a raging alcoholic and he was physically and emotionally abusive, and I mean, that sentence isn't. I mean, it's a bad sentence, but it's not like I felt something from you,
uh-huh.
and
Like what did you feel?
that's what I was trying to figure out. Um, I think what I felt was a weight, like it's like you can say you got punched and you can say you got slugged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the difference between getting punched and getting slugged?
Getting slugged sounds more funny.
Interesting.
Like
So,
I got slugged by that guy. Like you might laugh, but that guy punched me. Like it's like, oh, it's more oomph.
yeah, there's more oomph, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I didn't perceive that as funny. I perceived it as like
I maybe I'm a piece of
oomph.
shit.
No, I mean, it's just
Uh,
we each carry different connotations to certain words, and
mm.
it just sounded heavy. It sounded. Give me a second to
uh,
tell you what I heard. I heard a certain sense of finality to it. I heard a certain sense of inescapability to it. I heard a certain sense of you trying to understand and like try to figure out what was going on. Maybe almost you trying to forgive him by understanding that poverty may have had a role to play. That you're not sure if it was his fault or if it was all his fault or how much was it his fault and was he under pressure, but that it was his fault to a certain amount, but that there are other factors that went into it. I heard hurt on you. I also heard almost, and this is all just me projecting, right? Because like I can't really know any of this shit. But
mhm.
I heard almost like more hurt with you watching the way that he treated your mom. I heard powerlessness, inevitability.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, man. And I think something about what you shared carried all of that.
So my father's he's now dead. He pretty much drank himself to death. He had cancer.
Liver
I think
cancer?
it started in his throat,
Hmm.
and my guess it's because of his use of cigarettes. And then it's everyone was saying it's gonna be okay, like it's literally nothing serious, you know, one surgery will fix it. But then it spread everywhere, and like in an span of a year, he died. You know, from going from it's nothing serious, and the doctors all saying it's not gonna be a big of a deal to him dying.
Hmm.
And it's not the pain that he caused me and my mother that hurts me. It's because this all happened when I was 14. Me and my mother, we ran away from him. We uh we split ties with him. We had no communication. I'm 21 now. And what's crazy is I don't think I was emotionally mature enough to understand everything that was going on. And now that I'm 21, you know when you're a kid and like an adult can tell you the sky is purple and you're like, okay, it's purple. You know why? Because they're an adult. You just believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you become an adult, yourself, you're just like, that guy was full of shit. The sky
What
wasn't purple.
what did he tell you that was full of shit? What did they tell you that was full of shit?
It wasn't what he told me, it's what he did. Like he'd always back to the emotional part, he would always looking back, he mirrored. He was a very insecure man. He projected his insecurities onto me and my mother. But me, I think emotionally, I don't know. I think me and my mother endured two different types of things. But I didn't really do that good in school, and he would just, what am I? Why did I make you? Uh, or why are you my son? Or call me a bunch of swear words and always question what I'm doing with my life and always tell me I'm wasting my time and why couldn't you get an A+? Why couldn't you do this better? Why couldn't And it
Sure.
it weighs on you.
Sounds like you
And
could never be good enough for him.
yeah, and now that I'm grown up, he did nothing. He
Sure.
didn't do anything. He spent all the money on cigarettes and alcohol, tons of money, and he would scold me for wanting to buy a chocolate bar, a $1 chocolate bar, which every kid wants chocolate, every kid
Sure.
wants candy, right? But he would turn it around into something like, how dare you ask for candy? How dare you ask for this? Dad, can I go on this field trip? How dare you ask to go on the field trip? You know?
What did that how did you feel when when he said that?
I felt like, holy shit, maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe I am a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I asking to go on the field trip? Wow, I'm so spoiled. Because he would call me spoiled, and I'd be like, I am spoiled. I believe him because he's my dad, and I loved him.
Do you still love him?
I don't know. I don't really. When I try to recollect my memories, I don't really have any with him except negative experiences.
How does it feel to realize that?
Uh, it's just messed up. It just, and this goes back to when I said when he passed away. It's there's no fairy tale ending. There's no, you made a mistake and you're able to come back, and we were able to meet up as grown men and talk about it. There's none of that. It just, it
Coco,
all
it sounds to
ends.
me like you got robbed, man. That's the sense that I'm getting. You got robbed of so many things. The possibility of good memories with your dad, possibility of a dad, possibility of a dad who supports you, the possibility to tell your dad to go fuck himself, which I don't know if you ever did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. 100%.
How did that feel?
To what?
To
Tell
tell him
my
to go
dad to
fuck
go fuck
himself.
himself? Pretty bad. Pretty bad. I mean, it's like I said, it's just no potential. There's nothing. He's gone, and that, I think that hurts me even more
What hurts
because it's
about that?
just because I because the crazy thing is my dad. I found this out from my sister. She's not really my sister. She's my half sister. She was from a failed marriage previously of my father's, but I consider my sister, and she told me, I think I think a month ago, she told me my father was abused as a child too. He was beat really bad by his father. And when I heard that, at first I laughed because the irony, you get beat as a child by your own father, and then you become into him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it broke me because he knew what that feels like. He knew
Oh shit.
he knew what that felt like to get hurt, and he did it to me.
Wow. So I just that's heavy, man, because I wonder if there was some part of you that there's some comfort in obliviousness, right? There's a difference between making a mistake because you didn't know or it wasn't under your control, or maybe it was the poverty, or maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe maybe you were a spoiled kid, and like those are all like good explanations, like they're safe explanations.
Yeah,
But if you know what it's like to be hurt and you do it to someone else, it's like so much more intentional.
yeah,
Wow, that's gotta hurt like way more.
yeah. That, and now that I'm more emotionally aware, and I
You're
think,
very emotionally aware, Coco. I'm
and
impressed,
and
to be honest. By the way,
and
you
I
keep on
think,
talking about being grown up at the age of 20, and I was like, damn, son. I don't.
I mean, it's more than 14. It's more than 15.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe in your case you really are grown up, but in my case I was like basically developmentally 14 when I was 21.
I
Like, not, it's
sometimes
not an exaggeration.
am.
I think you know, we're not adults at 21. Like, we call ourselves adults. But like, how many 21-year-olds know how to pay their taxes? In my mind, you're not an adult until you learn how to pay your taxes.
I paid my taxes.
Well, see, you're separate. You're different, Coco. You're not one of us then.
I think I've done a lot of critical thinking, and
It's clear
I've
to me.
thought a lot of what has happened in my childhood, and because of the experiences and the ranges of emotion I felt, I'm more emotionally intelligent,
Very much so.
and I do a lot of self-criticism and a lot of self-thinking. And the reason why I came to you is because I feel as if my worst fear is becoming like my father.
Ah, we
That's
can
my worst fear.
we can help you with that. Um, can I just think for a second?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to just think out loud, okay? I'm going to
Okay.
try to imagine some of your thoughts, and I'm going to try to imagine some of your reservations, and I'm going to try to address them. The short answer, Coco, is I'm not worried about you becoming abusive at all. And I've known you for all of 15 minutes, so what the fuck do I know? Not much. And so I think the challenge here is that you see some amount of, like I said at the very beginning, I mean, after your first kind of couple sentences, I said there's a certain inevitability to it, right? And what I'm hearing even in that question is an issue of inevitability. Like, your dad got beat when he was a kid really bad, and so he beat you really bad. And even though he knew what it was like, he still did it. And so there's a part of me that wonders, like, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, like, is it possible to break that cycle? Because it seems like it isn't. Like, there's a certain sense of, powerlessness about this whole thing. Does that resonate with you at all?
It scares me.
Yeah, so I think it's completely reasonable that it does. And that's actually why I have faith in you, because it scares you. So I don't think that your dad, I don't think when he was 21, I would be really, really surprised to hear words like what's coming out of your mouth come out of his mouth. I think your dad was maybe capable of all kinds of things, and I really don't know. I mean, I've never met the guy, never will, so this is an unfair judgment, but he doesn't seem to me someone who's very self-reflective.
He wasn't.
Right? And so in my mind, power comes, I mean, our whole ethos is that power comes from awareness. Like, this is what confuses people. They say, like, what do I do once I understand? And then I say, like, I kind of say, you don't do anything. You just understand. It's very, like, a weird idea for people that understanding is enough. So I think the things that, what do you play, Coco?
I play Rust.
Not too familiar with Rust. Can you tell me about it?
It's pretty much you spawn in naked with a rock, and then you go kill other nakeds with rocks.
Okay.
It's like a huge, like, like the saying, like, crabs in a bucket,
Yeah.
and each crab is trying to pull each other down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally just people pull each other down for no reason.
This may sound kind of weird, but do you feel abusive when you're playing Rust?
Yeah, I mean, I kill people, and like I take, like, Minecraft. You know how you can farm, and you have a box, and you put all your farm in the box, and you start upgrading. You go from dirt to stone to like obsidian, whatever, diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Rust is like the same concept. It's really like satisfying to the brain, because you start with a rock, and then you slowly progress. You go from like a primitive rock player, you're on an island, and then you progress, and you like you get a bow, and then you get like a handmade Ioka gun, and then you go from that to like a double barrel shotgun. You just progress, and as you're
Yeah.
progressing, in order to progress, you have to kill other real players, and you have to take their stuff. It's either they take your stuff or you take their stuff, so it's you against them.
Yeah. Is there a particular? Have you played Minecraft before?
Yeah, I have like 2,000 hours in Minecraft.
So do the games feel different to you?
Yeah, I love games where it's like open world survival games. I love that concept. Like, I'm a huge fan of DayZ, Minecraft, Rust.
Last Oasis.
No, I think that game's shit.
Why?
It just doesn't really look that good. I don't know. I checked it out. Like, I haven't played it, but uh, I'm just I think I'm just really addicted to Rust.
Got it. Fair enough. I mean, I just think it's kind of like, this is me being a little bit academic and Freudian, but it seems to be like, so I just know that some of my friends play Last Oasis, and they're just like super toxic humans. And
Rust is really bad.
yeah.
It's pretty toxic.
So oddly enough, yeah, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I think sometimes we need outlets for certain feelings that we have. And I'd just be a little bit curious. I don't know that we need to go talk about this, or if this is me really connecting dots, because really none of this stuff is supported by science, or very little of it. But there is some evidence that people are drawn to video games for particular reasons.
Interesting.
And so there are different like 6 subtypes of like kinds of gamers. So there's like the explorer. So this is someone who enjoys games where you like explore things. There are people who are more interested in narrative. There are people who are more interested in competition. There are people who are interested in progression. There are so many different kinds of video games. Like there are people who are interested in like strategy and tactics. And so the question is, does that correlate to our personality? And this is really the first time that I've ever wondered about, and please don't interpret this like this because I'm about to say something that I think can very easily get taken out of context, but whether there's an abuser that is growing within you that finds an outlet in Rust.
I mean, my first game was StarCraft. It was StarCraft 1 and then StarCraft 2. And then I got into DayZ and then I got into Rust. But what you said about like, I thought about this too. I was like, man, I just like in Rust, like I have a rock, that guy has a rock. We gain nothing from killing each other. I kill him anyways. And I thought about this. I was like, why did I kill him? And like I saw there was another like time in Rust when someone built like a sign. It was like a Rust lemonade shack. I broke it, and I just broke it because I wanted to break it. And I was like, why do I enjoy doing that? Like, why did that make me happy to destroy someone like what someone built? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could be because I just wanted to entertain the chat and like, oh look, it's a lemonade stand. Let's break it, you know? Or it could be because I had abuse and I'm just abusing a pixelated Rust stand. I don't know.
Yeah, which oddly enough, I think even if that latter thing is true, so I'm really curious about that too. I'd love to catch you in those moments, Coco, and actually talk to you about like what's going on in your head. And maybe we can do a little bit of that now. But oddly enough, I think that that's okay. So I think we have like tendencies, and I think that video games can sometimes be a healthy way for us to like work out our tendencies. Like they can satisfy a part of us so that we don't have to do that in the real world. I'll give you.
It's like break like dominoes. You know, you set all the dominoes up. You spend hours doing it, and then you just break it, and it's super satisfying to do it. You know.
So it doesn't matter to you that it is someone else. Do you break your own dominoes?
Yeah, I would like make. Well, I was terrible at making Legos, but I would do what I can to make the Legos as a child, and then I would just break it. Or like I would.
How does it feel to break things?
Feels like I don't know. It just you build it up and then you break it. Like I would make like a big base in Minecraft, and then I'd spend like hours doing it, and then I'd put TNT inside the base and I'd blow it all up, and it felt good to do.
What feels
it
good
felt
about
satisfying.
That? What's satisfying?
I don't know. Just seeing it all just like blow up and like the dirt's like coming out of the sky, and you're just like, oh, and like I don't know. Is that weird? Is that like odd?
Yes.
Oh shit.
I mean, I think it's okay. I don't think it's bad. So you asked me if it's weird, right? So is it odd? Is it outside in the norm? I just think about. So like let me explain what I mean. I don't mean to be judgmental there, but you asked me a question, and sometimes I give people. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So like let me just put it this way: when I see most people who play with Legos, I see the operative part of playing with Legos is the building, not the breaking. Like, i.e., like even I'll go into adults' homes, and I'll see they'll have like Legos on shelves instead of trophies. Right?
Yeah.
And I think about like why, like when I think about like breaking apart Legos, like generally speaking, the reason most people break, I mean, I don't know about most because I've never done a study about this, but when I think about like breaking Legos, I think about the goal of breaking Legos is so that you can build them again. Like there's enjoyment in the building, and then like a lot of times, like, for example, like my kids get really bent out of shape if I try to put their Legos away because they built something and they want to keep this truck or whatever that they put together. I have one of them who's a little bit destructive. Like one of my kids is a little bit destructive. But I do think it is, I mean, generally speaking, in my singular anecdotal experience, most people who play with Legos are into the building as opposed to the breaking. Does it mean you're damaged in some way? Please don't interpret it that way. All I'm saying is that it does seem to be different from most of what I've seen about why people use Legos. What do you think about that?
I think there's some truth. Like, I've thought of like why I do the things I do in Rust, or I thought of the things like, in Minecraft I would go and grief people. Like, I would, like, there'd be like a wooden base, and I'd be like, man, fuck this guy, and I'd light his base on fire,
Yeah.
and he would type in chat, be like, why the hell did you do that? I said, fuck you. Then I ran away.
Yeah.
I don't. I think there's some truth to it.
Truth to what? What are you saying? Because
I think I did it because I felt powerless. Like, at the time, like, I was 13, and I had no control. I had no control over my life. I was super insecure. I still am super insecure. I'm still like battling through that. And it felt, I think that's why we go to video games, no? To like have an outlet, to like have some type of control. It feels really good to get good at it, like to become really, really good at a game and have control in the video game because you have no control in your life.
okay, so just pause for a second, Coco. I'm going to ask you a meta question. Are you getting the
Okay.
sense that I'm saying this?
What do you mean?
Like all the stuff that you just said, are you getting the sense that that's coming from me or is that coming from
No,
you?
no, that's coming from me.
Okay. Because all I was saying is that I think it is unusual. Like most people, when I hear them talk about Legos, they talk about building or they seem to emphasize building. And so you
Yeah.
asked me, is that weird? And I said, yes. I'm not interpreting what that means. I get the sense that that interpretation is coming from you.
Mm.
Right? So, like, I haven't said anything about you being powerless as a 13-year-old. Like, that shit's coming
Oh,
from
no.
you.
No, I'm
Okay.
just saying that.
I mean, I think it's a good insight, and I would agree with it, and it's a hypothesis that I had, which maybe you picked up on. But I just was a little bit confused because I hadn't shared that with you yet. So then let me ask you this. Like, you know that feeling that you get before you break something down?
Yeah.
Like you want to break it down. Like you want it to be broken. You don't want it to be the way that it is. You want to take something away from someone.
Yeah.
Do you remember feeling that way at home? Or at school? Or when you were growing up?
No, not really. No. Like wanting to take someone's stuff?
Yeah, or maybe like more related to your dad. Like, did your dad ever like evoke that feeling? Like, I know you couldn't act on it.
So you're basically asking if I had any like negative, I wanted to do something negative to my father. Is that what you're
Sure.
asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times uh, when he would hit my mom, I would envision me picking up the golf club next to me and hitting him with it. Or I would envision me hitting him really hard in the head and stopping him. Or I would try to like figure out a way I could physically stop him.
How did it
Yeah.
feel to not be able to do those things?
They still haunt me to this day. The feeling of not being able to protect my mom and not being able to stand up and do something about it, and
Yes. So that makes sense.
just feeling powerless. Like I'm
Yeah.
not anything. Like, what kind of son am I if I'm not able to protect my own mother?
So Coco, that makes I cannot imagine that you would feel that way. I think anyone in that situation, any 13-year-old who's watching one of their parents hit another one of their parents is going to feel ashamed and guilty that they didn't do something to protect them. And that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
You're aware that you feel this way? Like this is not new to you, right?
No, no.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask you. So like sometimes people come here and I'm not quite sure what our goal is here today, but my sense is generally speaking I try to help people possibly explore things that they haven't explored before. And so the takeaway from that whole story is that you were not good enough of a person. right? Like you weren't good enough, you weren't strong enough. And so you blame yourself for that, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's actually like a weird shadow to that light or that object, which is that do you blame yourself at all for like not being an asshole and not being evil enough and being too good to not hurt your dad? Like you wish you were
Abs-
more evil?
Absolutely. I mean, if that's what it takes to be able to prevent him from touching my mom, from hurting my mother, if that's what it takes, then absolutely.
But
Yes, 100%.
in my mind, those two are very different things, and maybe they're not to you. But so, not being able to stand up to your dad for your mom's sake makes me think like you are not good enough, right? Like you're not like honorable enough or protective enough. You're missing a positive quality. With me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah or no? Like,
I'm following you.
okay. But I wonder if there's also like some sense in you that you're missing a negative quality. Like you're not evil enough to do a bad thing. And I wonder if you blame yourself for that. Like one is the absence of a good thing. Like I'm not able to sacrifice for my mom. And one is the absence of a bad thing. It's like I'm not enough of a bastard to hit him over the back of a head with a golf club. Like you see how one's like a good person and one's a bad person?
Yeah.
Like which
Yeah.
one of those resonates with you or both?
Both of them do, because I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's, oh, like I'm such a good person I couldn't hit my dad. I just felt fear.
Okay.
I was terrified
What were you afraid of?
that he would hurt me back, which he did anyways.
Sure.
So like, what's the point then? Like, you might as well you might as well do something, you know? And so that's what I'm like it's just a constant back and forth, and I think a lot of my
Sure.
insecurity stems from my childhood,
What do you mean by insecurity? What are you insecure about?
not being in control, like of my own like mind and my own body, and not being in control of like what's going on, like like how my emotions lead me to do something I wouldn't want to do, such
Does
as
that
like,
happen?
yeah, like I have like random emotional outbursts and like that lead me to hitting holes in the wall.
What do you think is going on there? What do you mean by a random? Can you give an example of a random emotional outburst?
Like something that's so like minuscule, something that's like it's like a minor thing, like a random annoyance, like something I'm arguing about with my girlfriend, or something like a problem I'm having with somebody, right? I get really angry. Like I can
Can,
go 0 to 100 for no reason, and then it pisses me off even more because I'm just like, you're acting like your father now.
hmm.
So then I
I
get
can
more angry.
I can see why you're so concerned about becoming an abusive parent
Yeah,
because it sounds like sometimes you're not in control.
no,
I'm more worried about you becoming an abusive parent now. What do you think about that?
I think I agree with you.
I think maybe my statement earlier of having faith because you're good at or you try to emotionally explore was maybe a bit premature. What do you think?
I think so too.
I'm glad we're on the same page. So we should take this seriously, right? Maybe you
I
you
think so.
aren't as good of a person as Dr. K thought you were. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's why we're here today.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad you're here today, man. I really hope I can help you out in
I'm
some way.
glad you're having me.
So let me think. Can I teach for a little bit instead of ask you questions? Would that help?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know you've shared a lot, so I kind of want to take the pressure off. So there are a couple of different angles to this. The short answer, first of all, Coco, let me start by saying I am still confident that you can become a warm and loving parent who is not abusive. So let me start there. I don't think you're hopeless. I think it's going to be a steeper road than I thought it was going to be. What is it like to hear that? What was that sigh?
Relief.
Okay. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think you can do it. And furthermore, I think you're on the right track. I still have faith in you, although I'm recognizing that this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is actually something about neuroscience. So when you take, so our brain has emotional circuitry like the amygdala and the hippocampus. And there are studies that show that different people, the activity of their emotion, how can I say this? Their emotional responses vary compared, let me just think. Okay, so I was going to try to simplify things, but I'm not going to simplify things. It's actually easier to explain if I don't simplify. There is something called borderline personality disorder. Have you ever heard of it?
Borderline, say that again?
Personality disorder?
Yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Okay. Do you know what, like in the media, there's kind of this common conception of a crazy ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
Like, like the attributes of a crazy ex-girlfriend, like they flip out, right? At small things. They stalk you, they show up here, they do this. There's like something about them that's like a little bit crazy or very crazy. And I'm not trying to say that women are more so than men or anything like that, but I'm just pointing out that this is a stereotype that a lot of people understand, and I think it illustrates some neuroscientific concepts. So the stereotype in common media of a crazy ex-girlfriend is actually clinically what we tend to call borderline personality disorder. So these are people that have, generally speaking, the following buckets of issues, okay? So the first is that they have a fear of abandonment. So whenever someone pulls away from them, they kind of like flip out. The second thing is that they tend to be like emotionally like 0 to 100 very quickly. So in studies of people with borderline personality disorder, they take a particular emotional insult and they do it to someone with BPD and someone without BPD. And what they find is that the activity level of the emotional parts of their brain spikes way faster and also stays elevated way longer than other people. So if a healthy person gets, let's say, a bad performance review at work, they're going to get bummed out over the course of the interview where they get the performance review. Like it's going to happen like 30 minutes into the interview, they feel really bad about themselves, and they're going to feel bad about themselves for like between 1 and 3 days. For someone with BPD, they start to feel bad about themselves 60 to 90 seconds in the interview. Even before they get the bad news, they start to like feel really terrible about themselves. And then they beat themselves up for an entire week. So literally the brains of people with borderline personality disorder are more emotionally responsive to small stimuli and stay more emotionally responsive for way longer than a normal person's brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think is the number one risk factor for borderline personality disorder?
Trauma.
Absolutely. So what we've come to understand is that borderline personality disorder is like, it's not like an infection, right? Like you don't just wake up one day, huh?
Are they bad people?
No.
Borderline, no?
Oftentimes they're perceived as bad people because they do things, and this is why I'm explaining this to you, because I don't think you're a bad person. They do things that are perceived as crazy by other people because other people don't understand why they behave the way that they do. And the other thing that people don't understand is that BPD people are not stupid or crazy or nuts or bad. Their brains literally wired this way to protect them from certain circumstances. So I'll give you just a simple example. Why is it that a normal person feels bad about themselves 30 minutes into a performance review when your boss is telling you you've done a shit job at A, B, and C? Whereas the person with BPD, within 90 seconds of the start of the interaction, the person with BPD feels like they're shit. Like, how the fuck does that work? Your boss comes in, they say, hey, like, how are you doing today? What'd you have for lunch? And at this point, the person with BPD starts thinking, oh, I'm an absolute piece of shit. Oh, fuck, I'm going to get fired. How do they even know to think that? Does that experience relate to you at all, by the way? Like, can you understand that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do.
So in what way do you relate to that?
The fear of abandonment.
Okay. So I'll explain to you why people with BPD are the way that they are. So I want you to imagine, I mean, in your case, you don't have to imagine, what it's like to grow up. So for people who haven't grown up with abusive parents, imagine what it's like to grow up in an abusive household. Let me ask you this. How likely, like, let's say you get home from school one day. Was your dad at home when you got home?
Yeah.
How long would it take you to know if you were going to get beat that day?
He'd give me the look.
Absolutely. So now we get to the look is actually something that has been scientifically validated. So what this means is that people with borderline, so in your case, what your child brain was doing is interpreting information. And it learned how to predict how someone is going to behave based on how they look at you. So a look is way more significant to you than it is to the average person. And that's absolutely a survival mechanism. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Like you have to know the minute you walk in the door, which of your dads you're dealing with. Where is he on his spectrum? So there's a really, really fascinating study. It's my favorite study on BPD, where they take people with BPD and they show them a facial expression. So like this. So like, how long does it take me to change from going like this to this?
Like a
huh?
a second. It's like a second.
Yeah. So then what they did is they filmed that 1 second and they broke it into 100 frames. So if we think about it, like at halfway through the second, I'm halfway through smile and halfway through frown. I'm kind of like this. Right? And if you show my face to a normal person who's halfway between smile and halfway between frown, what do you think they interpret?
He's happy and then he's frowning.
On the contrary, they don't know what the fuck to interpret.
Oh, okay.
Whereas you can show someone with BPD 20 frames in, so when this person is still smiling 80%, but they only have 20% of anger in their face, a person with BPD picks up the anger. Whereas a normal person, they have to be 80% angry before they pick up the anger.
That's interesting. That's fascinating.
Fascinating. This is the look. You know exactly what the look is. And other people who haven't grown up with abusive parents don't understand. They their brain literally cannot process that degree of information to interpret how someone is going to react. This is a consequence of your brain adapting to trauma. So now we get to why do you blow up? It seems random. It's not random. It's because all you take is it takes a very, very small signal for you to pick up and get emotionally activated. And then everyone else is fucking confused because they're like, I'm 80% happy and 20% upset. Your girlfriend can be 80% happy and 20% upset, and you're going to pick up on the 20% upset, and that's what you're going to react to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And why do you do that? Is it because you're an uncontrollable emotional person? No. It's because, literally, I want you to think about this. There are two Cocos. One who goes home and pays attention to the look, and one who goes home and does not pay attention to the look. And what happens to those two Cocos? What happens to one who pays attention?
He gets emotional.
Okay. What are his chances of getting beat?
On the week, varies.
Okay.
Super sporadic.
Sure. If you weren't paying attention to your dad, what are the chances that you get beat?
If I wasn't paying attention to my father,
yeah,
I was always paying attention to my father. That's the first thing I did. I stepped in the door.
Good. So my point is that you were always paying attention. And why is that? Because even before you remember, there were times that you weren't paying attention. And when you weren't paying attention, you didn't see the look because you were playing with your Legos and then you got beat. So you learned from a very, very early age, you always have to pay attention. Because that is a survival mechanism. Think about it like evolutionarily. Like in one scenario you get beat, and in one scenario you don't get beat. So your 6-year-old brain learns, I have to pay attention. And now what's happening is you haven't learned to stop paying attention, or you haven't realized that you're still paying attention. And you haven't realized it's not that you're like emotionally unstable. No, it's that your ability to detect negative emotion and other things from people is way higher than the average person, even far beyond what you're consciously aware of. And so then your girlfriend gets really fucking confused. But the problem here is that you respond to the way that she's feeling, which she doesn't even know herself. She's not conscious of it, and you're not conscious of it, but you detect it, and then the part of your brain that formed when you were 6 to protect you from getting beat takes over.
Oh my God. That's insane. Because I remember, like, I always walked home from school. So I'd walk home, I'd open the door, and the first thing I'd do is, sometimes he wasn't home, sometimes he was, I would scan the entire house and look for him. I would not like look at him, like I would try to just get a look at him. Because the door's really loud. By the time I'm in, he already knows I'm in the house, you know? So I'd try to just get a look at him. And the first thing I'd do is I'd look at his face. Always. And if he gave me the look, I was like, oh, I'm getting my ass kicked. That's fascinating. It's weird.
What's weird about it? What's
because I didn't know this. I wasn't conscious about this. I had no idea. Like, I wasn't aware of what I was doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then you brought it up, and it just makes sense. I was just trying to protect myself.
Absolutely. So now the question is, if you want to change, you're afraid that you're a particular kind of person, right?
Yeah.
And so now what we have to do is we have to ask ourselves, like, when you blow up for no reason, is it truly no reason? Or are you just picking up on something that you're not consciously aware of and your girlfriend is not consciously aware of?
I think it's number 2. I'm not aware. I'm picking up on something, and
right?
I blow up, and the person doesn't realize what I'm blowing up for, and I don't realize what I'm blowing up for, but it's because I picked up on something that the person isn't even aware of.
Yep. And just think about this. When you went home when you were like 7 or 8 years old, like consciously, like just think about the 8-year-old. If I were to ask you, Coco is an 8-year-old, what are you doing? You would say, I don't know. Like the 8-year-old has no conscious. Do you see how like the survival mechanism of your brain has nothing to do with consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
Like, as the 8-year-old doesn't understand why he's checking every room in the house.
Yeah.
And then I ask you, like, Coco, what are you doing? And you say, I'm looking for my dad. And then I'd ask you, why are you looking for your dad? And then you're like, I don't know. Like 8-year-olds don't understand why they do things. With me?
Yeah.
So that part of your brain evolved and sort of like leveled up to a certain capability and then like set itself aside and started operating autonomously. That's how our brain works. And then your conscious mind developed after the age of 14, 15, 16. So it started growing over here, but it was never aware of like this other, like, it's like a program that's running in the background.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And then you think you're a bad person because the conscious you doesn't understand that, like, when you hit Control-Alt-Delete and you look at the task manager, there are all kinds of these processes that are running. And you just have a process. You literally have a survival process. It's not like a I'm an asshole process or I'm an evil person. It's literally a survival process. And then there are a couple of other things. Like I imagine, so one thing that we see is, trauma is correlated with what we call emotional instability, which I think is it's the second worst term in medicine. The number one term in medicine that I think is dumb and judgmental is incompetent cervix. If you guys know what that means, it's like, anyway, when women are pregnant, sometimes, they have this thing called a cervix, which has to open up. So like the uterus is different from the vagina, and the cervix is like the door between the uterus and the vagina, and the baby is in the uterus, and then the cervix opens up during birth. So then the baby passes through the uterus, through the cervix, into the vagina, and then out. And then an incompetent cervix is a cervix that is like too loose, and so like it doesn't keep the baby in the uterus, so you can have like a premature birth and it can end bad. But the
Oh
word
shit.
incompetent is just like, it's like your cervix is fucking dumb. No, it's not dumb. Anyway, it's just anyway. So like emotional instability, I think is a really judgmental term that I don't think is fair. It's not that I don't think like even sensitivity is like has a negative connotation to it. So I would say this. Coco, your brain is emotionally primed. So you're like you know when you play Rust and you're primed for conflict and you're looking for it.
Yeah.
So you're paying attention to
Hmm.
every little thing in the environment because that could mean you get beat.
Yeah.
And so that's what your brain is in terms of emotions. You're looking for things. You're always on the lookout. Because when you weren't on the lookout, you got beat.
Hmm.
So it's not that you're emotionally unstable, it's just that your emotions do react more quickly. And part of that is all. Go ahead.
I think me living in New York like has elevated that too, because in New York, when you're walking by yourself at 2 in the morning, you're always looking around. You're always making like some guy
Sure.
looks you up and down and looks at your shoes. You're like, oh, I don't. It's funny you say that about emotion and being able to judge someone, because like when we'd go out to a party or we'd go out somewhere, I'd get one look at a group of guys and I'd be like, it's gonna be a long night.
Yep.
It's gonna be a long night.
So I will tell you this, Coco. I have walked up and down the streets of New York, and I have never once thought about anyone looking at my shoes. Like I have never once noticed what people are looking at or not. I mean, I have once or twice. Like I can tell when people are predatory and are mentally ill, like have schizophrenia and things like that. But you know, like because that's what I've been primed to look at. But I'm generally oblivious to things like that.
Mm.
And so this is just like your brain is prone to survival mechanism. Now the problem that you run into is that your brain evolved to function in a hostile environment, right?
Yeah.
Now, the problems that you run into, and this is where you need to grow and change, is not that you're a bad person, but you're no longer in a hostile environment. So your brain is freaking the fuck out when it doesn't need to anymore. That doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you emotionally unstable. It just means that you need to learn and you need to intentionally teach your brain how to respond differently because hopefully your girlfriend doesn't beat you and she's not gonna beat you,
Hmm.
right? Hopefully,
She's very, very patient with me.
yeah. So
Very
so
patient.
hopefully that's the case, and it's just going to take you some time to like learn that, and you can intentionally do that to speed up the process. Like you know, hopefully most people like learn how to get over this at some point, but we can definitely help you understand a little bit about how to do that. So I wonder if I mean I. Let me just pause for a second and ask you one or two questions. So the first is, what do you think about our conversation so far?
Eye opening.
Okay.
Very, very eye opening, because you're telling me things that I didn't even realize. About the whole emotional thing. Like it makes sense. It makes complete sense. The first thing I do is look at a person's face and their body posture, and I can like tell how they're feeling just like this.
Yep.
I can pick up on reads,
Very common in trauma.
and I think in order to understand my outburst, we have to go deeper than that.
Deeper
And
in what way?
because my idea was like I just have these random emotional outbursts. That's what I initially said to you, right?
Yep.
And then you talked about this idea of borderline personality disorder, and you're reacting. You're in your brain is. And the reason I feel I have not changed, or I've been able to fix this, is because it varies. I haven't had one in 2 weeks, but I have I have nightmares. It started flaring. It flared around when I left. I couldn't sleep in a room with the room was dark, because when I was a child, my dad would just randomly come in the room and beat me up in the dark. So I couldn't sleep in a room that was dark till I was like 13, 14. I was terrified of the dark. Now I can sleep in the dark, but when we left and ran away from my father, I started having emo the emotional number one, the emotional outbursts. Well, what we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and number two, I started having nightmares of recreated scenarios that my father has done, and scenarios that never happened but still terrifies me. And it happens once a week.
Okay. Coco, are you seeing a therapist?
No,
Have you ever
you're the
seen
first.
one?
I had an evaluation done like for ADHD, but was that even a therapist? I don't even know, but
Probably,
you're the
yeah,
first.
maybe.
You're the
So,
first.
so a couple of concrete things, okay? So the first is that, I really think you should see a therapist. By the way, I don't think you have borderline personality disorder. Like there's I'm not diagnosing you with something. I'm
Mm-hmm.
using that as an example of, generally speaking. So I use that because the studies on BPD are pretty good. But essentially, this is common of trauma. So you don't have to have BPD. But like my conception, so a big part of the way that I view mental health, which is like sort of different from some of my colleagues, is they view it as an illness. And it's absolutely like an illness in the sense that it interferes with your life, right? Because you don't want to have these emotional outbursts. It's maybe puts a strain on your relationship, on work, things like that. So I get that it's like not good for you. But the more that I've come to understand mental illness, the first thing that I start with is that this person is not crazy. And the more that I've adopted that mindset, the more I've come to learn that like our mind does things to protect us. And it just doesn't know any better. Right? Because your responsiveness to like subconscious stimuli are like literally a survival mechanism for you. And so now the question is, so now this is kind of sort of the second part is like, now I'd like to ask you where you want to go. So there are 2 or 3 different directions. One is that I can talk to you about your thoughts and feelings and we can hear stories about your past. And sometimes people feel like emotionally unburdened for that. Sometimes people watch for people telling really heavy shit and they cry and they have this beautiful moment at the end and all this kind of stuff. We can talk about your past and you can share the dark parts. I'm happy to talk to you about that. I'm leaning a little bit away from it because what I'd actually like to do is help you. I get the sense that you've explored some of those parts yourself in terms of getting to the emotions. Some people struggle in reaching the emotions. It doesn't seem like you struggle with that. You've done a lot of good work around that. So the next 2 things that we could do is to help you reinterpret and understand the impact of that stuff on your current life. So to help you tunnel down into what precisely is an emotional outburst, what are the sequences of events, and how can you understand like what that process is? Because once you know to look for it, like in Rust, there's camouflage, right? Do you know how to?
Yeah.
Do you know how to spot camouflage?
Uh,
I mean, maybe not.
if a bush is green, it's pretty obvious if a guy's just hiding in a bush.
Okay, so like my point is that generally speaking, like there are people like there are things that are camouflage that are hard to see, and once we learn how to spot camouflage, we become better at like detecting it, and then we can act on it. So I think that what's going on in your emotional outbursts is that there's a lot of stuff that you're blind to. And once we teach you how to not be blind, then you can start to control it. Because right now the problem is like, oh, I have this random emotional outburst. It's not random. You think you're just like, you wake up and you're like in the middle of a 4-hour stream and you just have an emotional outburst? You're like taking your 3rd piss of the day or you're refilling your bottle and you like just have this emotional outburst? I mean, maybe you do. I don't know.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So I think that there's actually, but that doesn't make sense to me because like human brains are not random, right? Like you don't just, wake up one day and decide to dress like a chicken and pretend and make monkey noises. Like that's random. Like the human brain responds in generally like, when do you eat? When you get hungry? When do you get sad? When you talk about sad shit or you listen to sad shit? Or when you stop distracting yourself and you're sitting alone. Right? Like there's an order to our mind and our thoughts. It's just, you just don't get sad at random times. When you watch a sad movie. Like there are things that trigger our thoughts and emotions in particular ways. When do you feel like eating pizza? When you see an advertisement for pizza or when you smell someone else eating pizza. There's like order to our mind. So I don't believe that your emotional outbursts are random. I think the reason, and there are a couple of principles around that. So I'd like to help you maybe understand your emotional outbursts. The third option, and this is kind of opening a different can of worms, so maybe like session 2 or Twitch stream 2, is to really talk about your fear of abandonment and where that comes from and sort of thinking about relationships. But I leave it up to you. I'm happy to just listen And then, as you talk about things, maybe I can bring up a couple of the other things. So if you want to just tell us about, what it was like to run away at 14, what you understood. I mean, all that stuff I think is going to be interesting. Although I don't know exactly where that's going to go. And this option number 2 is for us to dig into the emotional outbursts and maybe try to get some understanding of them, because I think that when I look at you, I see one foundation to all of your fear, and it's that you're not in your control.
Yeah.
And so if I think about how can I help this guy, the simplest way is to teach you, to help you see that you can be in control. And if I can do that, everything comes tumbling down. All of your fears about being an abusive father will come tumbling down. And the third is to talk about abandonment. What do you think? We've got about maybe 15, 20 minutes left, so we can kind of tie things up.
Okay.
Maybe half an hour, if you feel like it.
I think by me telling because like at the start you were like, I don't think I have a fear of you becoming like your father. And then after I told another story, or I told you more about myself, you understood more and you're able to, give more insight and more knowledge to me. So I think by me telling you I think telling you more about me and my character can help you help me.
Sure. Beautiful. So what do you want to tell me about your character?
So my fear of abandonment, I think, comes from because like you mentioned, like people with borderline personality disorder, like they get very emotional when people leave,
Yep.
right? I think I do that too. I think I
Okay.
think I've done that, and I've done that in the past before, whether it's ex-girlfriends or it's
You're the
or if it's a
crazy
friend.
ex-boyfriend.
I'm not crazy into like, oh, like stalking their profile and
Okay.
like going to their
I
house. I've
meant it
never
as a
done
joke,
anything
but
like
I
that. Yeah,
apologize.
I've never done anything like that. But I feel I definitely feel emotion more from friends, from like people I consider good friends and ex-girlfriends. Because if a relationship doesn't work, then fuck, it doesn't work. Can't do it. We got to move on. But with friends, it's more of like when I befriend someone, I see them as like a brother or a sister. Like
Hmm.
it's either we're associates or we're very, very, very close. And when there's the threat of that person leaving and leaving my life, I can get very emotional.
Can you tell me about that?
Uh, I get frustrated because it's like,
Can you tell me an actual instance? Like, who are we talking?
okay,
Can you talk to me about someone?
okay, so me and this guy knew each other for, I'd say, 2 years, and we were really good friends. We went to the same high school. We were on the same wrestling team. Really good friends. We went to each other's birthday parties. We hung out all the time. Blah blah blah. Uh,
How old were
and
you
then
when you guys became friends?
oh, we were 15 when we became friends, and then we were friends till we were 17. And then I remember when we became 17, he started to kind of drift away. He kind of got distant in our conversations, and he didn't check up on me as often as he did. And I got really, really angry, and I saw him in the hallway, and I pushed him for no reason. And then after that, he blocked me, and we didn't talk after that.
So when you say for no reason,
Hmm.
help me understand, are you detecting a reason now, or at the time did you think it was no reason?
At the time, I detected there was no reason.
What
I
do you
think I think what happened now. I was telling the story of like what I thought back then, not
Sure.
like
Yep.
now, but
Yep,
like
yep.
what I think now. What happened is he just found new friends. He just because in high school and college, like people just like they bounce around from social circle to social circle. People change, and I think like he found his own like group, his own little group, because he leaned more towards what's the thing called when we argue? Debate team.
Hmm.
He joined a debate team, and I continued with wrestling.
Hmm.
So he was more busy with his schedule and I was busy with mine. And I understand that now, but back then I just chalked it up as he hates me. But he was just busy with his own thing.
Yeah.
I
So let's not think about now, because that actually doesn't help us very much. Let's think about then. Because if we think
Mhm.
about, the
I
chat.
okay. You remember what we talked about with Minecraft blowing up the TNT
Mhm.
building, whatever? I destroyed our friendship.
Yes.
I decided to destroy the friendship, and by pushing him and also insulting him and just like kind of clowning him, I destroyed our relationship. I destroyed it before he could destroy the relationship because I felt like that's what he was doing at the time.
Okay. That's very common for people with BPD.
Hmm.
So let me share with you some thoughts. So once again, I'm not diagnosing you because I
Yeah.
can't over the internet, but you understand that, right? I'm just going to share with you
Hmm.
information. So having worked with some people with BPD, and this also isn't necessarily BPD. This is oftentimes people with trauma. The thought of someone leaving you can be so painful, and it can also be so powerless. So sometimes it's kind of like the sentiment, well, if it's going to happen, let's just get it over with. Like some people, especially in histories of trauma more so than BPD, some people kind of, have this mentality that like a sure no, not some people, most people actually, a sure no is easier to deal with than an uncertain yes. Just like tell me, do you like me or do you not like me? You're like, let's just get it over with. Because right now I don't know, and it's the not knowing that's killing me.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with BPD. That's just normal.
Okay.
Right? So like sometimes what happens is like what we do is like when we're not sure where things are going, but we don't think they're going in the right direction, we like put things to a climax. Like we put things to a test. And it's like, what is he going to do when I push him? Is he going to like try to fix things, or is he going to like let things go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let me ask you this. Like, so you used a very interesting phrase, which is that he didn't check up on me as much. So generally speaking, when I think about two friends, I don't think about their interactions as checking up on each other. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
So you use the phrase he didn't check up on me as much.
Hmm.
He like stopped checking up on me.
Yeah.
But like I think about checking up on is not like you didn't say he like stopped texting you as much, right?
He stopped texting me. He stopped like he just kind of like
Fine.
went and did his own thing.
I completely I understand what you're saying. My point is that like you used a particular phrase
Uh
which
huh.
I don't usually think about when I think about friends.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna like play games with my friends tonight, but like I don't check up on them during the day, right? Like I message them on Discord and it's like, hey man, what do you want to play? Like I don't envision that as checking up on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So who do you check up on? When do
I
we?
I use the word like check up on as in like just like if you have a friend that you consider close to you, you're like, hey man, how you doing? How's work going? How's how's your parents doing? Like small like checking up on them.
I completely agree. So you're using it appropriately, but
Okay.
how is the question? So let me put it this way: like checking up on is a sign of like how is your interaction with your friends? I completely agree that's checking up on. I'm not saying it's not. How is that different from the way that I interact with my friends? Like what is yours? If I message you and I'm like, hey man, you want to play games tonight? Versus if I message you and I'm like, hey man, how are your parents? Are they doing okay with COVID? Like, what
Hmm.
does one message imply and another message not imply?
One message is just you trying to hang out,
Yep.
I guess. And the other message is you trying to be like you trying to like, hey man, like how you doing? I guess.
Yes.
What's
So
up? Like,
I would say that one is about caring and one is
yeah,
not. So when I
yeah.
think about mentally, when I think about who do I check up on, it's the people that I'm worried about. It's the people that I care about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And even the way that you interact with people, it sounds like you actually like give a shit about them, like you care.
Yeah.
So let's, if we assume that the phrase checking up on associates with caring, what does it mean if he stops checking up on you?
He doesn't care.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah.
Right? So then let's think
Looking
of it.
back, looking back, I think he was just we were both in high school and
Looking back is fine. Now you understand that, but how did you feel back then?
I felt like why is this piece of shit ghosting me? Like what did I do
It
wrong?
feels like he doesn't care.
He doesn't care about me.
He doesn't care about you. Right? And if he doesn't care about you, then what does that make you do?
Makes me want to like hurt him. Not but yeah, makes
Yeah,
me want to hurt him.
absolutely. Because what is it like to be not cared about?
Feels terrible.
In what way?
It my dad hurting me.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's even worse with friends. Because I think the people that it's hard for you to get away from are the ones that led you to believe that they care.
Mhm.
It's like you understand that there's associates and you don't emotionally invest in them at all.
No. They're
But
just
once you
associates.
open the door, because it's hard for you to do that,
Yeah, it's really hard.
and then you let someone in and you start caring about them and they start caring about you, and then like it can feel really hurt. I'm just going to toss a sentence out there and you let me know. Try to think back to you being 17 and whether it felt this way. You were supposed to care.
Yeah. After all we've done together, you were supposed to care.
Absolutely. Beautifully put.
And I saw him like my brother, you know, like I said, it's either associates or we we even called each other brothers.
Yep.
It's either associates or it's you're very, very close to me. There is no in between. I can't juggle that. So when it's now I'm very picky with like who I let into my life and who I open the doors for because it's the ones that's closest to you that can hurt you the most.
So oddly enough, Coco, I'm going to suggest to you a different strategy.
Okay.
So the problem, so let's walk through that strategy. So you're more selective about the people that you let into your life, right? So like ergo fewer people are coming into your life. What is the likelihood that they will leave?
You're talking about right now? Like
Yeah,
not really that like not really likely.
but they're going to leave, right? Like just think about it. Like you're 21, you're dating a girl, like what's the chance that you're going to marry her?
Pretty high.
Okay, I know you think that. What's the chance that 21-year-olds marry their girlfriend?
Pretty low.
Gonna happen, right? I'm not saying that it's gonna happen in your case. I mean, when I was 21, I was dating a girl, and she's the one that I ended up married. We're together 16 years later, so it
Look at that.
happens. I'm not disputing that, but I'm saying statistically, you're letting fewer people in, but because of stuff like you're 21, right? So like people are gonna be like your friends are gonna be like graduating and moving and things like that. Like all that kind of shit is gonna happen. In the same way that you look back on high school and you say people grow and they change, you're still 21, man. Like people are still growing and changing. So those
Yeah, you're
people, the
right.
people that you choose to let in, are going to leave your life. And it's going to hurt when they do that. And the problem is that when they leave your life for completely normal reasons, what are you going to do? How did you respond to being hurt in high school? What do you do now?
I pushed him. But
You pushed
now
them.
if that happened now, I would just think about the good times we had and move on.
That's really nice to hear. I think though that what you would do is probably more of what you're doing now. So here's the pattern that I'm seeing. Pretty open arms. Lots of people in and out. You get hurt a couple times, narrower arms. I'm more selective. Fewer people in and out. Chances of people abandoning you, less. But it's still going to happen because you're 21.
Yeah.
And when you get hurt again, narrower. Very few people coming in and out. So I think over time, you're going to isolate yourself. I think a better strategy is for you to, when you perceive that someone else is pulling away from you, having a conversation with them. Don't just mourn and think about the good times. Like, you can actually change them leaving if you change the way you talk to them. Right? If you were 17 and you were kind of saying like, hey man, you have time to chat, and then like not just chat, because like I'm sure you made good efforts, right? You would check up on him a couple times. It started becoming pretty one way, and you sort of started.
I try to hang out with them,
and like he wouldn't give you the time of day.
No, he'd say yeah, and then he'd just ghost me.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And so then like I think what you need to like learn how to like not just push him away at that point, or say like fuck him, he's not worth my time, because that's like another sort of impulse, right? Like when we get hurt, we're like fuck that, he's not worth my time.
Yeah.
It's to actually like authentically share with people what you feel. And it's hard when you're 17, but like, you know, it's to sit down with the guy and say like, hey man, like we've made plans 3 times and you've ghosted me 3 times. Like I understand that people grow and change and you've got a new batch of friends and you're in a debate club. I think that's awesome. But to be blunt, like I thought we were really tight, and I know that it's not like you hate me or anything, but like frankly, dude, I miss you. Like it's hard for a 17-year-old male to tell another 17-year-old male who are platonic and close that they miss each other. Our society has not made it easy for us to say things like that.
Yeah.
But if you feel like people are leaving your life, like rather than like try to maneuver around it, which once again your brain is going to do. Because do you see like how your brain shut down any kinds of attempts at direct communication about how you feel? Because if you told your dad how you felt, nothing fucking didn't matter.
Yeah.
So you have literally shut off a particular path of interacting with people. And the reason that you shut it off is because you had such a big influence in your life with which that path of communication was useless. But imagine this for a second, right? Like, if you base a strategy about how to live your life on the interactions with your dad, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because thankfully, people are not your dad.
Oh, thank God.
And so you've got to learn a different way of interacting with people. Right? It's to let people know, like, hey, man, like, I'm feeling like we're drifting apart in this relationship. I mean, it's some hard shit to say, but it's kind of like literally telling people, hey, man, I feel like we're drifting apart, and I value our friendship, and I want you to be a part of my life. It's like if you say that to, like, one of your friends on Discord, like, what the fuck? Like, they don't even know what to do with that, right? But then you can model with that. The chances are you feel the same way. And then, like, they're going to say something to you. They're going to say, like, yeah, man, I'm really busy. Like, actually, it turns out that, like, my dad has cancer and I don't have enough time. And then it's like, oh, shit. And then you understand, because there's a part of you that feels like you were a piece of shit. Because remember, your dad, a long time ago, you started believing that you're a piece of shit. And now this is where we get into the psychoanalysis, psychobabble kind of stuff. So you have a part of you that starts with the idea that takes the truth that you're a piece of shit. And then what it does is it like you've got some sort of lethal combination of shit stew. It's the perfect tornado of part of yourself believing that you're a piece of shit, an oversensitive or a highly primed sensory system that detects any kind of discomfort. So even if people are 80% happy with you and 20% sad with you or frustrated with you,
the 20% sad.
You're going to hear, you see how that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
Those two things combine to make it hard for you to engage in relationships. If we took away either one, you'd be fine. It's the combination of the two. And that's going to change the way. And then the third, like if you want 3 strikes and you're out, the third strike is that you have not been taught how to relate to people with your feelings. Because that entire process was fucking a waste of time when you were growing up. Like your mom maybe tried talking to your dad and they're like, please don't hit Coco. And your dad was like, fuck you, and then smacked her and then smacked you. And so then your 6-year-old brain was like, oh, talking to people is a waste of fucking time. What's way better is for you to interpret, to mind read, and then adjust accordingly, which is exactly what you do. You mind read, oh, this person doesn't care about me. Oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. Like you never interact with them. You interpret, it becomes truth in your mind. You know exactly what their thoughts are. And then you just adjust your behavior without ever directly communicating with them. I said her because I was thinking about your girlfriend. Is that what you do with your girlfriend?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what's in her mind?
I don't know what's in her mind, but I look at her face and my mood can instantly shift just like that.
Right? So now I'm going to give you something super, super concrete,
Okay.
which is when you look at her face and your mind shifts like this. I want you to try to see what the mind what's happened in your mind. And even if you don't see, if you can't piece it together, what I want you to do is tell her in that moment, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but something just shifted in my mind and I'm feeling kind of like antsy or stressed out. Just communicate that to her. And then the cool thing is, because she's not your dad, she's actually hopefully going to like help you work through that. And then maybe you guys can have a conversation about it and maybe you'll feel better. And then you don't have to let that shift control you. And that's where you're going to get your power back.
Oh, makes sense. That makes so much sense. Thank you, Dr. K. Thank
You're
you
very
so much.
welcome. Coco, I still have faith in you, man. I think you're going to be okay. But it's going to be hard. Like, it's hard to do that. But just start with catch the shift as best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then share, catch it and communicate. Like, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to get her to do anything. You don't need to do anything yourself. Catch it and communicate. That's really all you need to do. Questions?
So, not just my girlfriend, but just like people in general. Like, if it's like second nature. Like, if I can look at a person's
It's not second
face,
nature. It's first nature.
it's first nature. Like, if I can look at a person's face and I can't. It's not like a thought process. It just happens.
Yeah.
It just happens, and like, how do I control that? If it's just impulse, it's like drinking water. You don't drink water in your nose. You drink it in your mouth.
Yep.
I'm
So
21 years old.
You can't control the first step. You can control the way that you respond to it. So it's kind of weird, but when you say it's second nature, it's not second nature. It's first nature. What you can actually control is second nature. Mm-hmm. You can't control the way that your face interprets, the way that your senses interpret their face, because that's been programmed in. That process is running. What you can do is control the way that you respond to that. That's where the control comes from. You can't, and maybe over time you can over time rewire that part of your brain. There's good data to support that. But it takes a couple of years. But what you can also do is, like, you can catch it and then you can choose not to respond in the way that you normally do. Which, honestly, the way that you normally respond is by doing nothing. You see that? Like, you do something way down the road from when you know the problem arises. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. There's, like, you notice point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, point F. You notice lots and lots of things, and your brain is interpreting lots and lots of information. You act around like X, Y, and Z. And at that point, like, that's where the emotional outburst comes from nowhere. It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from 97% of shit building up, and then you just overflow.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to imagine it this way. Let's say my trash can is full, and then I throw one banana in the trash. And then the banana spills out. And then I scratch my head, and I'm like, holy shit, it's completely random. Sometimes I throw one banana in the trash, and it doesn't overflow. And sometimes I throw, like, it's completely random. Like, my trash can is random. Like, one banana can make it overflow sometimes. It's not how it works, man. It's not random. You're overflowing, and you're just not aware that your trash can is filling up throughout the day. So the solution is to catch as little, any point that you can, catch it. And then I would say start with your girlfriend, because that's kind of easy. Like, it's weird to do this with other humans. Like, you have to pick someone that's kind of like intimate that you're close with. You can pick your mom or someone who can be patient with you. It sounds like she's patient. And then, she comes home one day, and then you see her, like, you're telling her about your day and she's texting. And then you get, like, jealous or pissed off at her because it feels to you like she doesn't care. Because if she cared, she would be paying attention. And then what you do is you catch it, and then as best as you can, you try to explain it to her. And you say, like, I don't know why, like, and this is where you have to be careful, because this is where, like, the abusive part of you could come in. If you try to control her behavior and make her stop texting, then you go down the abusive road.
Gotcha.
So you don't want to control it. You just want to acknowledge and say, like, I'm not saying, and then you have to let her do that, right? Like, you have to give her the power to sort of say, like, hey, I'm not saying you should stop texting, but right now in this moment, I feel like you're not really paying attention to me, and I just really want you to. And then it's like, you guys have to work out, like, should she stop texting right now, or should you learn how to manage your own feelings, and then she's going to finish her texting, and then she'll, like, you guys will connect in 15 minutes, and then you guys can talk about it?
Oh,
Like,
that was a question?
yeah.
I think she should. So if she's texting and I see her and I don't like that she's texting, I immediately catch myself and I say, hey, I don't really like that you're texting. It's bothering me. I have a feeling. I shouldn't say put the phone down. Do I just say how I'm feeling?
Absolutely. And in fact, what you want to say is, I'm not asking you to put the phone down. I'm trying to share with you the way that I feel.
Okay.
Right?
So share. Okay. Yeah.
You don't want to guilt trip her into putting the phone down, which is what's going to happen. So you even need to, like, correct on the opposite side. And then, like, if there's an impulse to you that's like, put the fucking phone down, bitch, you need to notice that too.
I don't think like that.
Okay, good.
I don't think like that.
Maybe I'm projecting.
I have I have like thoughts. It's just like why is she not paying attention to me?
Yeah.
Or like I look at her face, I'm like, oh, she doesn't really care what I'm saying. Her eyes are,
Right.
I know that.
See, but you don't. This is the thing. You can't know. Your brain tells you you know, but you literally cannot know what's in someone's head. But that's not what your brain tells you. Your brain is like, I see that look in her eyes and I know. Like, just pause and think about that for a second. Can you read minds?
No.
But you feel that way.
Yeah.
Right? So like people who have had a history of trauma can become mind readers. That's what they feel. They start to believe that their thoughts are facts. Right? And looking back on it now, like, you recognize that your buddy just, like, he grew into a different person because you guys met when y'all were 15 and then, like, he was 17 and then, like, y'all are different people. But back then you knew that he didn't care about you. You see that difference?
Yeah, I see the difference.
And you're going to have it now too. You're going to know that she doesn't care about you. And then you can also, like, let her know, because it's going to be fucking weird for her. You got to give her, like, some kind of, like, background about this conversation and that you're going to try something new.
I'll just have her watch the stream. She's not watching right now because I asked her not to, but I'll just have her watch the stream.
Sure. Right? And then, and so you're right. Like, so you got to be really careful because you don't want her to act. What you want to be able to do is separate, because this is exactly your goal. So just listen carefully. Separate your emotions from other people's actions and your own actions. Separate, decouple emotion and action.
Oh, that's so hard.
Yes. And here's the thing, Coco. Once you can do that, you don't have to worry about being an abusive father anymore.
Fuck. Okay, I'll try.
You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Because the abusive father is going to come from uncontrolled emotion. It's going to come from emotion leads to action, and there's no control in between. So you can literally train yourself to uncouple those things by sharing your feelings with her and asking her not to put the phone down. And then saying, can we talk about this in 15 minutes? And then as you learn to wait 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 60 seconds, it starts with as pathetic of a time amount as you want to. Then it becomes 90 seconds. Then it becomes 10 minutes. Then it becomes 15 minutes. Hey, can we check in about this tomorrow? And then one day you're going to wake up and your emotions don't control you.
That'd be the best day ever.
But it's going to be hard and it's going to be slow. So
Yeah.
catch it and communicate is step one. You ready to meditate?
Yeah, I'm ready to really try to get this thing under control.
Okay, good.
Seriously.
So we're going to sit up straight.
Okay.
I have a really, really hard meditation technique for you, okay? Close your eyes. I want you to notice your breath. So unfortunately, Coco, this technique is going to be hard, and I'm not going to give you any training wheels. So I want you to, can you tell the difference between inhalation and exhalation?
Like I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling.
Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
It's kind of a silly question, I know, but it's a simple one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously. So I want you to find the moment where inhalation becomes exhalation.
Okay.
Can you find it?
Find the moment inhalation becomes exhalation.
Yes.
It happens when, I mean, it happens when I inhale, and then when I feel like I've inhaled enough, I exhale. I'm not sure.
Okay. So let me ask you something. Is there a moment where you pause the breath?
Yeah.
Don't pause.
Okay.
Let the breath flow naturally from inhalation to exhalation.
I'm doing it.
And now catch the moment where one becomes the other.
Well, that's weird.
Good. That means you're doing it right. Slow down. Breathe through your nose. Slow, slow, slow. You're breathing way too fast. Go slow. I understand why you're breathing fast, because you're trying to collect more data at the transition.
Yeah.
Let yourself sit in the inhalation, and then sit in the exhalation. And then notice that transition.
Am I going too fast?
I think you're doing better. If you feel like you're breathing too fast, then slow down. Don't get lightheaded. Take a break for a couple of breaths if you need to. Just breathe normally and then return to the technique.
I think I'm doing it.
Okay, what are you doing? Tell me.
I'm inhaling, and then right before it hits the brink, I'm exhaling, and then I'm catching it again on the inhale.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I'm inhaling, and then before it hits like the top, I'm exhaling, and then like before it, like I'm switching it over and over again. I don't know
So
if it's
how are you exhaling if it hasn't hit the top yet?
because I'm just letting it out.
What do you mean by the top? Is that not the end of the inhalation?
Am I supposed to be going at the end of the inhalation?
Can you, I think you're doing it right, but maybe let's just understand our terminology. So, what I'm hearing from you is that you are catching the moment where inhalation becomes exhalation. Yes
Yeah,
or no?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, describe that moment to me.
It feels, I don't know. It feels pretty good. It feels like I feel really relaxed.
Okay.
It feels awkward too, though. I've never breathed like this before.
And what feels awkward about it?
Because like I feel like there's like a rhythm with breathing, and I'm just like breaking that rhythm. So I'm just not used to this pattern of breathing, like this rhythm of breathing, you know?
And what is the rhythm of breathing that you're doing? Are you doing a rhythm across multiple breaths? Or are you changing the way that a single breath is breathed?
I'm changing the way that a single breath is breathed.
And how are you changing it?
By when I inhale, I use the exhale. I feel like I'm not explaining myself properly.
That's okay. It's because it's hard to describe. It's a lack of sufficient words in our language. It has nothing to do with, your capability. So it sounds to me almost like you were starting to exhale while you were still inhaling.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I think
What is
you're
what
doing
is this
it.
called?
It's what you're doing is somewhat impossible, but I think you're doing it right. Because do you get this? Like you can't inhale and exhale at the same time. That's like literally not possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're doing it right. And so now what I want you to notice is that what you're noticing is that there's a phase where inhalation and exhalation overlap. Right?
Uh-huh.
But if inhalation and exhalation overlap over a period of time, that is not the moment where inhalation becomes exhalation. Right?
I I guess.
So let me put it this way. I want you to zoom into that transition and find where exactly they cross over perfectly.
Okay.
By the way, sometimes it takes people a couple of months.
To do this?
Yes.
I'm like, I feel really relaxed, but at the same time, I'm like getting frustrated because I feel like I'm not doing it right.
No, you're doing it right. It just takes
Okay.
practice. So this too, so very good.
Am
Coco,
I done?
sort of. Now I
Okay.
want you to notice your frustration, right? So notice your frustration and then step away from it and do 3 more breaths where you look for the moment of inhalation to exhalation.
Okay.
Just focus on the practice. Notice that you're frustrated. Maybe I'm not doing it right. You're doing fine, by the way. I'm telling you, you're doing great. But just notice that frustration, let it be separate from you, and return your mind to where you want it to go. Do you feel the frustration?
I don't really feel it right now. No.
Good. Where did it go?
I don't know. I just breathe.
Oh,
I don't know.
I wonder. I wonder if this can help you the next time you add a tiny little piece to the trash.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're done. So now I'm going to explain a couple things to you. Fantastic job, Coco. First of all, it's a fucking weird exercise, okay?
Yeah.
So part of it is like we're exploring things like it's like trying to explain to someone, you know, if I take my kid and I put them like in the water for the first time in their life and I ask them how it feels, like I ask them, how does it feel? How does the water feel different from the air? They're not going to have words to describe their experience, even though they're feeling it. Does that make sense? And then they may even get frustrated when they try to describe how water feels different from air because we just don't have language for it. So let yourself get frustrated, so be it. But return to this practice. And this practice is going to help you in 2 ways. The first is that it's training you in catching. It's training you to notice that which you have never noticed before. Which is going to be like, that's your rock in Rust. Right? That's where you get started. And sure, you can upgrade, you can do fancy meditation, you can become a good communicator, you can decouple your emotions from your actions, and all that stuff you can wonderfully build up over time. But your rock, the thing that you start with, naked man with a rock, is catching. Catching is where it all begins. And you are doing it today because you notice things about yourself that you've never noticed before. You see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the fucking point. It doesn't matter whether you figure out the answer or not. It's not about the answer, it's that you're training yourself to look.
Man.
So just do that. And the second thing, bonus, little side advantage, is that as you experience frustration, if you look for the transition of the breath, it will give you power over the frustration. That's down the road. Okay? Questions?
Yeah. No questions.
Awesome, man.
Thank you so much for. Thank you, dude. Thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome, man. Thank you so
you.
much for coming on and sharing, honestly. Because I think that's the only time we can do our work is when people are authentic and like have the courage to show up.
I was shaking last night. Like my hands were shaking last night. I was shaking when I came on. I was a nervous wreck. I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna, like, I'm gonna really go on here but I feel so much better. I feel so much better. Because because you can't solve a problem if you don't know the question. It's impossible to solve it. So it's like my entire life I'd be like, oh, there's the trash can's overflowing. I don't know why it's overflowing. Why is it overflowing? I put a banana in there. I don't know. And my entire life was based on that. And now, like, no, you're just not taking out the trash, dumbass. You know?
Yes. Perfect. So this is why I have faith for you, Coco. Because if you can learn how to take out the trash, you're not going to be an abusive father. It's that simple. Is it easy? No. But there's absolutely a way forward. Absolutely.
Okay.
And you've got years, I imagine, before you become a father. Never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So you've got some time. So I'm glad you came on today. Really, really happy with how you're feeling. And I'm grateful to you as well. So good luck, man.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Okay, let's see. We got time for questions? Can we do like 3 questions?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it.
Oh, hey. Sorry, I need to mute stream. Hey, Dr. K.
Hey, what's up, man?
All right, so my question in regards to stream. So, say I'm making an effort, and when I mean an effort, sort of like reflexive listening, sort of like taking from the communication stream. So I'm making an effort to communicate to a person on like how I feel, but then I notice that person becomes like defensive. So quotations like, why are you questioning me? Like, why do you care so much for me? Those type of responses. What would be like the most like safe strat to respond other than like, I care for you, dude, or like I'm worried about you?
So this does require, like, you have to level up your communication past level 1. So there are 2 things, right? So how do you reflectively listen to why do you care for me?
How do you reflectively listen to why do you care for me? I guess like I would give reasons as to why I would care.
That's not reflective listening, right?
True. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like literally, how do you reflectively listen? Like if I say, so let's play this game, okay? What am I calling you, buddy?
A Zoom.
A Zoom?
Zil.
Zoom.
XIL.
Zil. Okay. So Zil, I care about you. Now you play your friend. We're gonna role play. So you play your friend, and I say, Zil, I care about you.
Wait, like why? So why do you care so much about me? Like I don't need you.
It sounds like you're kind of confused as to why I would care about you.
Yes.
Can you help me understand why you think it's strange, or like why you have trouble? Like, help me understand why you think that I wouldn't care about you.
I think because like, okay, I see. Like I'm trying to play like the other person. So like,
yeah,
like they have like, I guess like their own sort of like reasons as to why. Okay.
Sure. And then you reflectively listen to those. Because like the way that you reflectively listen to a question. So this is the thing. You guys think reflective listening is hard because you all get caught up and then you try to provide it with reassurance. No, man, it's literally, it sounds like, and then you fill in literally what they said. Let's try it again. So Zil, now you try it. I'm going to play your friend and you're going to play you.
Okay. So like, hey man, like so I feel as if like you're being more distant, and I noticed that you've acted differently around me versus other people, and I just want to know why is that?
Okay. So I don't know, we're going to have to talk about that communication, Zil, but so I don't understand like why, like I don't understand why you would care about like what I think. Like I don't understand why you think, I mean, like why you care about me. Like, what difference does it make whether I treat you a certain way or another way?
I guess like two-part, like that difference kind of makes me feel kind of.
You're answering the question. It's not reflectively listening. Wrong.
Okay, gotcha.
What is reflectively listening?
It would be trying to understand. It's like, oh, I'm sorry that.
No.
Would it be like?
It's literally say it sounds like, and then repeat the words that I say. Let's try again.
Yeah.
Okay, Zill. Express your caring for me, buddy. We'll get you there.
Hey, man, like, it seems like you've changed a bit. You've acted differently around me.
I don't know why you care, man. Like, I don't know what the big deal is. Like, I don't know why you would care about like how I act around you.
So you're saying that you don't understand why I care about you.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying, man. Like, I don't understand why you care.
So why do you think that is, though?
That's not reflective listening.
Actually, I might need a refresher in terms of like this context.
So it's literally okay. We're gonna try one more time. Okay, I'm gonna play you, and you're gonna play your friend.
Okay.
The problem is that you're responding to my questions instead of repeating them. Pretend that you're a repeating bot, and you just repeat like you should be make yourself into an NPC. People in chat are saying like NPC simulator, and you guys think that this is easy. It's not fucking easy. I trained 6 years to learn how to do this.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so let's try one more time. I'm going to be you, and you're going to be your friend.
Okay.
So, hey, man, like, I'm concerned about, like, how our interactions have been going recently. It sounds like, you know, I feel like you're kind of treating me differently.
Wait, why should that matter to you? Like, why do you care so much about what I need to do? Like, don't you need to worry about your own?
So it sounds like you're feeling like I shouldn't care so much about what I shouldn't care so much about what you're doing. I should really pay more attention to like how I'm acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit about how you think I should be acting differently?
Well, I think you should try not to worry about me.
I see. So you think that I shouldn't be worrying about you very much.
Yeah.
And help me understand why I shouldn't worry about you very much.
Because I'm trying to do my own things. Like, I got my own problems. Like, I don't need you to care about me. Like, I'm an independent person.
Yeah, so you're an independent person. It doesn't sound like you need my help.
Yeah.
So how has this been so far? Zill, now I'm talking to you. You got that? So we did like three reflective listening statements.
Yeah.
Right? So like you just roll with it. Whatever he says, you just repeat it back. Okay. You don't answer his questions. You don't say like, yeah, man, you do need my help. Yeah, man. Like if he says like, yeah, you should like, why don't we talk about you for a minute? And then you say, yeah, okay, let's talk about me for a minute. What should I say differently?
All right, so the safe strat sort of like rolling with it, like continue rolling with it, continue not answering questions, repeating the questions. Right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, you don't answer his questions, you just reflect them back. Like, I want you to imagine that, like, you have 100% damage resistance. And anything he sends your way, you just bounce right off. You just send it right back to him.
Okay.
Right?
And,
and the problem is, like, when you let something in, and then you give something back out. You can't have 100% damage resistance. It's like you're, like, you know, have you ever played an RPG where you have a defend action?
Yeah, like guard.
Yeah, and when you guard, you can't attack. You can't cast a spell. When you're guarding, the only thing you can do is guard. And so the second you start answering his questions, you're no longer guarding. Reflective listening goes away.
Gotcha, okay.
So just guard and keep guarding. And so basically what I do is, like, I'm a turtle, right? So like the way you do therapy is like you're a turtle or you're an NPC bot. That's also a turtle. and you show up and you guard with people. And then they get really confused and then they explore things on their own. If you never say anything and someone's like talking to a blank wall. But you're kind of encouraging them to keep talking. And then they'll figure things out on their own. Basically what I do. If you want to see a good example of people figuring shit out on your own, go back to the beginning of the stream and then listen to Coco's first interpretation that I even pointed out. I was like, I didn't give you any of that shit, man. That all came from you. That's what happens when you guard constantly. Is people start leveling up. It's weird.
Gotcha.
Good luck.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
I'd also be careful about your initial statements because they're very like judgmental and defense provoking.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, yeah. I mean, think about those, but
I guess repeat them just so
sure.
I can more clarified.
Yeah, repeat them. Go.
Oh no, I guess like the like what makes it judgmental, I guess.
So repeat what you said originally because I recoiled
okay,
a little bit when you said it.
Hey, I feel as if you're treating me, or like you're acting differently around me versus other people. I just want to know why.
Yeah, so I wouldn't use the word why. Why invokes defensiveness. So I feel like you're treating me differently. So I would say, and I wouldn't make a comparison to other, like, what do you mean when you say you're treating me differently from other people? Like, that smells of bullshit. Like, what are you actually talking about? Like, what does he do to other people that he doesn't do to you? Or vice versa?
Oh, God. Yeah, so, like, for some reason, or, like, for example...
like, that's going to set off his bullshit meter. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So what does he actually do?
Oh, like, just, like, hang out less?
Okay, so I would say that. Right? I would say, hey, man, like, I feel like we don't hang out as much as we used to. And I noticed that you still hang out with, like, a lot of these other people. And I'd like to hang out more. Don't cloak it in bullshit. Because that's going to make people defensive. Tell people what you want and be transparent with them.
Gotcha.
Okay. Good luck, man.
Thank you.
If it's a she, no big deal. All right, we're ready for round 2. Hey, man.
Dr. K.
Hey.
So yeah, my question is, earlier in the stream, you mentioned that it's okay or it's good to satisfy destructive urges and tendencies in video games, like Coco does in Rust. My question is, why is it good? And is there something you can learn from what your tendencies are in games, destructive tendencies, and your tendencies in real life? Like, is there a correlation?
Yeah, so first of all, I wouldn't say that it's good. So if that's what I said, I would walk that statement back a little bit. I think, I mean, I may have said it's good, but I think what I was doing was wondering. So I think it can probably serve some purpose to have a healthy outlet for some of your frustrations. So let me put it that way. But I think that the tricky thing about your question is, there's a difference between using games as an outlet for your frustrations and using games as a feeding source for your frustrations. Right? Like, you can use it as a way to, like, decompress some emotion, or you can use it to rile you up emotionally.
Does say destructive or toxic behavior not reinforce that behavior in some way in real life?
Absolutely. So I think it's like, I don't understand it very well myself, man, to be honest. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
But I've just noticed that, like, sometimes when I'm feeling bad, it's satisfying to crush a noob on the internet. And, like, sometimes I feel better about that. And I think you've got to be careful about letting your emotions out in video games, which I think can be healthy. And also, like, there's some kind of balance, which I'm not really sure about, like, when does that become toxicity? Right? When I make a Smurf and all I do on video games is, like, crushing noobs, like, that's not healthy. But I think occasionally crushing a noob from time to time, I want to say that that's healthy because it feels so damn good.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So I don't really know. I mean, I think it's something that we as a healthy gamer community should explore together.
Is it the same thing as the German term, what's it called, Schadenfreude or something?
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know that Schadenfreude is healthy to begin with, right?
Okay.
So just something about something about specifically Coco's case where he's like playing games like Rust makes me feel like he has an outlet for some of those frustrations that is less damaging than what he would do in the real world. That's just an instinct that I have.
Right.
And I want you guys to understand that like half of what I say is not substantiated by science or even like any kind of expert opinion. Sometimes what I offer you guys is just instincts and opinions that are just mine. So I don't stand behind that statement. It's more of a hypothesis that I would love it if you guys could explore that and like try to figure out, is there a good limit to it? Is there an unhealthy limit to it? Like, I don't really know. It's something I'm really curious about.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Ready for the next.
Hello.
Hey.
Should I just say it?
Yes, please.
The question. Oh yeah, sorry. How can you help someone with PTSD? Sorry.
And what am I calling you, by the way?
Lily.
Lily?
No, Lily. Lily? Muli.
Muli.
M-U-L-L.
Muli.
Yeah, Muli.
So, Muli, so how can you help someone with PTSD? So I think that's a tricky question because I think you have to understand, like, depending on what your role is, you can or can't help them. Right? So the first thing to understand is that someone with PTSD may need treatment and may need, like, a professional therapist. And just because you care about someone or just because you love someone doesn't mean that you can actually provide them with what they need. Right? If someone's having a heart attack and you were to ask the question, like, how do I help someone with a heart attack? It's like you could do chest compressions, but what they probably need is like a medical doctor.
True. But how can you help them find the right way to get that?
Or do they want to get that?
Well, in a sense, yes, but at the same time, they're very scared too.
Okay, so I think you can start by like talking to them about what they're afraid of. Right? So the short answer that I would give you is that you should meet them where they're at. So if you have concerns about them, start by sharing those concerns and say like, hey, I noticed that you're suffering a lot because of this and this. And I did some reading on WebMD and I'm wondering, like, have you ever thought about whether you have PTSD? Right? You start with like your concerns and like why you think they have PTSD. And give them some chance, like don't say, I think you have PTSD because of XYZ. Start by saying, hey, I'm concerned. This is what I've noticed. And then like give them, like, does that bother you? Start with like a super open-ended question. So what have you noticed about this person that makes you concerned they have PTSD?
Well, when I talk with her, she used to live with me here in the foster home, but she got back home. So her mom wanted her back. And now she lives in a different country. So every single time I talk with her, she always kind of whispers a little bit. She's scared of being too loud. Or if she hears a little bit of cracking like on the floor, she stops talking. Like it's like breathing also. Like she just gets quiet completely. Sorry. And it's like I want to help her be comfortable and not being scared, and so she can feel relaxed because she's a child. It's sad to see that.
How old is this person?
She's 14.
Yeah, so I'd steer clear of the term PTSD. Okay? So like if you're with a 14-year-old, you also have to remember that like cognitively and emotionally, like did you watch the stream with Coco?
A little bit of it. I was very busy, so I couldn't see her.
That's okay. So I was just going to say, like, if you imagine, so Coco told us that like him and his mom essentially ran away from their dad at the age of 14.
Yeah,
and supporting a 14-year-old is very different from supporting an adult. So everything that I say is about supporting like adults. So with a 14-year-old, I would just start with something really, really simple. So the way to support them is very different. It's just creating a safe space where they can talk to you if they want. So I wouldn't mention PTSD or try to get them to do anything. The way to support someone or help someone with PTSD is by making them feel safe with you. Because a lot of times when people deal with trauma, like what they feel is very alone and they feel very unsafe. That's why she speaks very quietly. That's why she doesn't, it sounds like this person like stops talking when they hear the floorboards creak.
Yeah, she did tell me that yesterday when I talked with her, that she likes talking with me and another guy because we listen to her.
Then I
The
think you're doing
sisters.
great.
Yeah, I was just curious of how to help her out of the home and support her because I
Yeah,
don't want
so
it for too
so I
much to
think
go
first of
on.
all, you're already. It sounds like you're supporting her pretty well, and I would, the most I would ask her, and maybe you guys can talk about that, is sometimes I've noticed that you seem pretty scared, like you won't speak up very much, or you'll like speak very softly, and then start with something really, really simple, like, what do you think about that, or do you feel scared, or something super, super, super simple, and then give her a chance to talk. And if she chooses not to talk, that's okay. You don't have to get her to talk. So this is another thing that I'll share with people. A lot of people think that helping people involves getting those people to actually get help. But remember that, like, some people can be struggling, and it can be enough to know that you care. So I was working with a patient of mine who was trying to get one of her family members into therapy. And years later, she decided to go into therapy. And now years later, that person has come back and expressed so much gratitude. She's like, I know I turned you down every time you told me I needed a therapist, but it actually like really mattered to me that you cared enough to keep mentioning it to me. And I know I got frustrated with you, and I know that I got angry with you, but like it's really nice to know that like you knew that I was feeling like alone and you tried to help. It's kind of like, if you invite someone over for like, let's say you're having people over, you're having a party, and you may have one friend that you invite over all the time and they always say no. Even though the person doesn't come, it can still feel really nice to be invited and be wanted.
True, very true.
And so a lot of times what happens is when we think about supporting other people, we think about whether our support lands in a particular way. So you can think like, oh, this person never comes over, I should stop inviting them. And instead, you shouldn't stop inviting them. You should keep on inviting them, or even just have a conversation with them and say, hey, by the way, I've noticed like I've invited you a couple of times and like I know you've been busy or whatever. Do you want me to keep inviting you? And then they're going to say yes or no. And then you just keep doing it.
I see. But so what do you sorry. Do you have any idea of maybe how to like other than support her like that, maybe help her get out of there in a sense? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's okay to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has way more detail than I can kind of offer, right? So the question is, what is her situation? What is wrong? What are her resources? What are her options? So I think, really like it's like, I mean, you may be able to do something on all of those fronts, but not knowing more about the situation, I can't really say. What I can say is that supporting, even though it doesn't create a whole lot of change, can count for a lot. Like I literally have patients that I see in my office that the reason that they don't they don't commit suicide is because they have one friend who keeps on inviting them to parties, even though they never go. Like
Okay, so
all
I
it
should just
takes
keep
is
talking.
one person to care about you for you to like feel like there's hope in the world.
That's true. That's very true. I know that already. That's what I also want to do to her. It was just I'm not I'm not a professional or anything, and I don't want to give her any wrong advice, or I don't want to make her think something is wrong, and I don't want it to get hurt because she is a kid, and it's really hard for a kid to go through all that kind of trauma.
So that is
So-
exactly what I would say to her. What you just said is like, hey, I know that I can see that your life is hard right now, or I'm thinking your life is hard right now. And you can even tell someone, like one of the nicest things that you can ever say to someone is, I want to help you and I don't know how. Like, see, we get so concerned about how to help people. You're like, how do I support her? Supporting people is not about the how. It's about wanting to in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Just knowing the fact. No,
Just having her know that you're there and you want to support her, and then she'll guide you, right? If you say, I want to help you and I don't know how, she'll say, actually, this is enough. Like, it's just nice to have someone to talk to. She's probably going to say something like that because she's 14 and she's not going to understand her own feelings.
True, very true.
And so then if she says it's nice to have someone to talk to, then you know that your duty is to be that person for her to talk to. Don't guide her. Just be a space that she can come to and feel safe.
Okay.
And then
So
when
I should
she's
just
ready to make a
always say
change,
that.
she'll let you know. Sorry, I keep talking over you.
It's okay, don't worry. Okay.
I'm
So
sorry,
you
what?
should just always let her, like, if she, like, she always does that where she want to tell me about something that happened with her mom or something she did to herself, or she want me to read some part of her diary where she's like talking really specifically about really scary details about what you want to do. And I was just curious, what do I do with that information? Should I just listen to it? Should I
Yeah.
call someone? What should I do with that?
I mean, if you're concerned for her actual like life or safety, you can definitely call someone. Like that's something you should do. You know, like if you're concerned for her like in a physical sense, like if it's like, you know, if there isn't like an imminent threat, you can always encourage her. I mean, I would in any way, I would encourage her to speak to a professional. So she's
Yeah, that's what
hopefully
I want to do.
yeah, so you can even start with someone that she knows. So instead of telling her to see a therapist, you can tell her like to talk to her pediatrician.
Yeah, I wanted her to do that, but the thing is, her mom keeps coming in the picture of if she calls her crazy if she want to do that, and then she feels
Well, I mean, she's
ashamed.
going to see her pediatrician at some point anyway, right?
No, just very rare,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah, so I think a lot of these like come down to the detail of the situation. I think the takeaway though is that it sounds like you're actually doing a pretty good job of supporting her. And then maybe try to like just continue to talk to her and give her a space for her to listen, for you to listen and for her to speak. And then you can make suggestions at some point if they feel like good suggestions to you, and you can ask her what she thinks about those. Sounds like
Okay,
you're
that
doing
makes
an
sense.
awesome service to this person.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to feel safe and grow up with a normal childhood.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can give her a normal childhood unless you're one of her
No, I
parents.
can't, but I
Yeah.
want to try.
Yeah, good. So do what you can, and good luck to you. And she's lucky to
Thank
have
you.
you in her life.
Thank you very much, Dr. K. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. So that's wrapping it up for us today.